DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy, family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Against the Boards. Chamberlain Bauder here with you. Thanks to my producer Paul Russo for getting me on. And we're here again to talk lax and hockey here in upstate New York. Going to be more on the lax side of things today as we are out of the hockey season and honestly kind of making the executive decision that while we're still in really the thick of this lacrosse season right now, we've got a little bit of fun high school lax to talk about first before anything else. We're going to stick with what's in season, and then when everything finally wraps up, we'll start to recap a bunch of things, hopefully get Andrew Moss Brooks in and talking about the Amherst, and hopefully also soon already got confirmed for an interview with Ryan Smith from the Rochester Nighthawks. So those will be coming up, but right now, going to be another one of the shorter episodes as we just kind of talk about all of the lacrosse news around the area and how it relates to the upstate New York area. First things first, as I said there, we're going to talk a little bit of high school lacrosse as with this weekend, of course, through today actually and tomorrow even, it is the sectional championships all around upstate New York. I had the pleasure on Friday of calling the Section 4 championships and yesterday and tomorrow calling the Section 3 championships. And I thought I saw the game of the year on Friday last week, and then last night I actually got beat somehow. But quickly, we have to go to that game that I saw on Friday, which was at 5 o'clock, and it was the Vestal Golden Bears winning the Section 4 championship over the Horseheads Blue Raiders. There they are with their championship banner. Post-game, this one took some extra free lacrosse, folks. It was a quick 1-0 start for Vestal. They scored on their first possession of the game, but then immediately Bo Briggs, the faceoff specialist for Horseheads, just completely turned that game on its head in the first 5 minutes. And Horseheads had a 2-goal lead up 3-1, and they really never let it go. At one point, they led the game 7-3. That was their largest, a 4-goal lead, but it felt way bigger than that because through that first half, Vestal was not able to score. And then all of a sudden, in the second half, it was a group effort from their two midfielders really that were the keys to it. It was Brody Crowley and Mike Hogan that were both hat-trick goal scorers in that game, but started out with Hogan scoring the first goal of the game. He was clearly the initiator for that offense, and then they had Crowley as a bull dodger who was seemingly able to score every time he took the bull dodge. He just didn't really take it that often, which was interesting to see. Then as the game drives on, we get into the fourth quarter. It's down to a 2-goal game at 10-8. And all of a sudden, Mike Hogan walks up to take the faceoff against Bo Briggs. And the second that he did that, you could just feel an energy in the room around him walking up to that dot. You knew he was going to win it. And he immediately won it, popped it right to himself, right behind Briggs, ran all the way down, and scored to bring the game within 1. Then it was Crowley with the assist onto the crease to get drawing extra contact and extra attention off of that bull dodge ability that he had, finding the extra pass onto the crease, and a goal gets scored in the final minute to bring things tied in that game. And Vestal then somehow, out of literally seemingly nowhere, just had all of the juice on their side. They kept Mike Hogan in at the faceoff dot after winning 3 faceoffs of 16 in the first 3 quarters. Mike Hogan wins the overtime faceoff. Vestal gets the timeout. And then Brody Crowley bull dodges to the goal, gets tripped as he goes there, takes a shot that deflects off of a defender, and with the ball moving at less than 20 miles an hour, it bounces off the ground and into the stick side high corner against Luke Lamoureux, the Horseheads goalie. And Vestal won in the first 30 seconds of the overtime frame after not having led that game since the first goal of the entire affair was scored. It was an insane game. I was awestruck as I watched it, but it then got topped yesterday as I traveled to Grady Field and got to watch some girls lacrosse. And this Class A Section 3 matchup between CNS and West Jenny was the best lacrosse game I think I've ever watched in my life, period. Now, given that is a statement that I've said without really any thought, I've watched a whole lot of lacrosse games in my life. I should probably think back and calculate like a top 5. But when it comes to competitive levels in this game, number of Division I prospects playing in this game, showing off their skill, I've definitely never seen a better high school lacrosse game than what I watched yesterday. I would also argue I have not seen a better any level lacrosse game than this. For reference, when they played earlier in the season, obviously CNS and West Jenny both playing in the Syracuse area in Class A, played each other twice a year. The combined score of those two games was CNS 29 and West Genesee 7. At the end of the first half of this game, the score was 12-12. West Genesee scored more goals in the first half of the Section 3 championship against CNS than they did in 2 games in the entire regular season against that team. And it was all because of their seniors who clearly did not want to be playing their last game. At halftime, Maria Snyder had a hat trick. Madeline Ryder had 3 assists. Molly Doran had a hat trick and 2 assists. All 3 of those players right there, Division I athletes. Maria Snyder going to Old Dominion, Madeline Ryder going to Yale, Molly Doran going to Florida. Absolutely insane performances from those 3. But then from CNS, who we'll talk about a little bit more in a second here, it was just as outrageous and impressive, the goal scoring. Natalie Wilson, the future Mercyhurst product, had 6 goals, a sock trick for those of you that don't know. 6 goals and an assist in that game. Sophia Nessie, who is the team's leading scorer going into the game, had 2 goals and 3 assists. And then it was Sophia Graham and Elizabeth Smith combining for another 7 goals for for Cicero North Syracuse. And they keep on running in their complete domination of the state of New York this year, seemingly, and roll into the win as Section 3 Class A champs. CNS, a final score 18-17. They took the first multi-goal lead in the last, or not the first multi-goal lead, the first multi-goal lead of the second half came in just the closing 5 minutes, and yet still in the last 2, West Jenny scored the 16th and 17th goals to make it a 1-goal game. But then on that last draw, unfortunately, Sophia Lawrence, the future Temple product from West Jenny, could not win that last draw control. And with 35 seconds left, when the team that's up by 1 goal wins the draw, it's actually not that hard to play keep away. And that is exactly what CNS did and carried them into the continuation of their postseason. But honestly, I mean, I'm at a loss for words other than that I've never watched a better high school lacrosse game in my life. It was sick. And when I get the tape from this one, it will be like one of the first highlights that I run on anything of my broadcasts. It was just an absolutely outrageous game. All right. From the high school level, moving on up to the professional level, the PLL opened their weekend in Albany this week. Of course, the New York Atlas, the team that we pay attention to a little bit. They've got a decent number of Cornell guys. They have that New York connection that we can attach ourselves to, but we also like to attach ourselves to certain players around the league. Now, given that number's starting to dwindle a little bit more with the way that the chaos turnovers happened, and hopefully we could talk to Ryan Smith about that a little bit in the next coming weeks as well. But ultimately, the New York Atlas, definitely a team that is worth the follow if you are a casual fan of lacrosse living in the state of New York and you don't know who you should be a fan of. If you want to see Jeff Teat, who of course went to Cornell and is one of the best lacrosse players ever, the generational talent is, I mean, what's the terminology people like to use? Lacrosse Jesus. I think I've heard that one a couple times about Jeff Teat. That one might not tickle your fancy, but I think it's a pretty funny one. The flow is definitely there for him. That offense is absolutely awesome. Trevor Baptiste is a fantastic face-off specialist. The holes are kind of terrifying, honestly, when you really sit down and think about it, especially for what it could be in the next couple of years, with it being Gavin Adler, who is a former number one at Cornell. Michael Grace just got drafted there. He hasn't gotten much playing time just yet, but definitely a guy to keep your eye on as, you know, the RIT to Syracuse product. Brett Makar is a former number one for Maryland, and then Tyler Carpenter was their draft pick last year that led the league, I think, in ground balls or caused turnovers, one of the two. It was a crazy stat line. But then in the crease, they have, in my opinion, the greatest goalie talent that we currently have in professional lacrosse, Liam Entenmann. This dude is just sick. I really don't think there's any other way to put it. And so last week we had a Logan McNaney goalie highlight. So from one New York goalie now to another New York goalie, still making a top 5 Sports Center play. Given I get the conversation from Paul that maybe a low light at the beginning right there. That second part's definitely a highlight, though. Right on the crease, already sitting down, gets his stick extended to the top of the cage. What I think is honestly more impressive about that is just seeing the ability from Liam Entenmann to actually, from a sitting position, he is so large that when he lifts his arms up, he can still get his stick to the top of the crossbar. Look, that is level with the crossbar, and he is actively 2 inches from sitting on the ground when he does that. It's just a crazy, crazy play. Also awesome to see in the post-game interviews that they had talking about this, that when they turned around and saw him on his butt, there was seemingly no doubt that he was going to save it. I don't know how, but I guess when you've got Liam Entenmann in cage, you just have that kind of confidence. Another guy who had that kind of confidence on the weekend was the man who went back to his college campus. And of course, the guy that we will talk about literally every time he does anything in lacrosse. I want you all to know that right now. Anytime Connor Fields does anything in the lacrosse world, this is the show that you come to find out about it. I will tell you all about it. I promise you, every single time. He scored 4 in a row. Let's watch them. They were kind of sick. Didn't realize it was still the NLL for Connor Fields, making it easy work down low. And that one right there, not a shot he could have taken in the NLL. That one, also not a shot he could have taken in the NLL. I think that goal just looked absolutely ginormous for Connor on the day. Let's watch him one more time. Right down to the crease against Krebs. Usually a great leg save goalie, but just too easy there. Doesn't even have to pick corners right now. It's actually honestly funny to watch versus, you know, every other game. This shot right there at the end, that's the only one where the goal is maybe actually the width of what he's used to shooting on right now. I mean, then they were all absolute beauts, but Connor Fields is rolling right off of his NLL MVP into the PLL season. And I'd say between him and Jeff Teat, and this is also a really cool thing for us as upstate New Yorkers, a chance to kind of break the mold of this, the battle that we see between the PLL and the NLL. The 2 best players in both leagues are Jeff Teat and Connor Fields. I've been thinking about this for a while, trying to brew how I was going to have this conversation and statement. Obviously, there's plenty of guys that are great all around. Dylan Ward is a goalie that plays in both. He's great. Brett Dobson, same thing. Tom Schreiber, obviously. But when it comes to actually being a top 5 offensive or whatever position you play, being a top 5 player at your position, I'd say Zach Currier is the other one that's also in there. Let's be clear. Okay, there we go. Now I don't feel like I'm stepping on any toes. They're top 5 in their position in the box game and in the field game. Having 2 of those guys be connected to upstate New York in the fact that one of them plays box in upstate New York and the other one plays field for the New York team and went to Cornell. It's just kind of an opportunity for us as fans to just fully embrace the players, not worry about the leagues, and just be fans of the people that are putting the ball in the back of the net or stopping that from happening. And that's how I feel I look at the PLL as a whole, honestly. Anybody with a connection to upstate New York, that's why I'm watching you. But Connor, dang, bro, that was sick. Great way to start that game. I really wish I could have put together some sort of same game parlay on that. That's something we got to talk about with the PLL, is figuring out when betting gets extended with how it works right now, because it's just not a lot in the pro lacrosse world or realms of things, given it's more than the NLL has right now, but it's still not much. But man, if I could have put together some sort of parlay around Connor Fields, I will do it every single week. I mean, I won't even hesitate to do something around it every single week, but just a crazy 4 goals, and he scored them all in a row. That was a natural hat trick +1 is what that counted as. Just crazy stuff from number 5 in orange now for the summer months. We'll see if he does anything as crazy as he did in Boston last year at any point this season with the between the legs paint in the top corner, but we'll just have to wait and see. All right, last thing with the PLL that we have to talk about is the elephant that was stomping around the room all weekend, seemingly. And if anyone is on Lacrosse Twitter, and if you're confused as to what that is, just dig. I promise you there is a Lacrosse Twitter. You can find it. But ultimately, the question that everyone was trying to get an answer for, and of course, the PLL gave it to Field Yates. It couldn't actually be a lacrosse beat reporter. Not like we have those. There's 5 of them. But anyways, ESPN's Field Yates gets the release of the fact that Jared Bernhardt, the 2021 Tourton winner and a former training camp roster spot member of the Atlanta Falcons, is signing with the Denver Outlaws in the PLL. Now, what does this mean? A whole lot, honestly. And the first thing that it means is that now the 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 Tourton Award winners are all on the same team. Now, this isn't usually a problem in the PLL. I don't think it's going to be a problem for this team, but I will put it out there. Any casual lacrosse fans asking themselves right now, wait a minute, aren't there only 3 attack spots on a field? Aren't there only 3 players who play attack in a game? Yes, there are. That is correct. However, really, we already saw Brennan O'Neill at different times playing from a midfield role. He definitely can create more as an alley dodger, I think. So putting him up top as your lefty mid makes a whole lot of sense. You could honestly put Bernhardt up in midfield, as long as really you have Kavanaugh able to operate behind cage and Wisnauskas on goal line extended. I don't think anything else. I think everybody else can move around. The other thing that's sick about this defense, or about this offense going against defenses now, and I'll talk a little bit about it with the Atlas in a second too. Who are you putting a shorty on? Like, Graham Bundy and Sam Handley now are going to get a short stick every single time. This is also a team, though, now when I look at the way that this offense shapes out, and, Justin Anderson had random splashes of being a really impressive player at different times, had some impressive games, but the PLL is, and I guess I'll get into it right now, everyone in the league is so skilled that sometimes players look really impressive because they're actually the worst offensive player on the team and they're getting the easiest matchup. And the level between the floor and the ceiling for these players in the PLL is on offense is so small. That margin is so small that, this guy who's able to make a professional lacrosse team is getting marked by a short stick midfielder. He's going to score his opportunities. We saw it with the Atlas in the fact that Matt Trainer is now going to be coming in as a midfielder from Penn State. He's now a rookie. He's going to get a short stick every single time. He hasn't seen a short stick in 3 years. Like, since TJ Malone was on the team, he hasn't seen a shorty unless he had to work his way into a switch to get onto that guy. Now he's going to get it off rip every single time. Same thing with Andrew McAdory for the Redwoods. He was at Duke. Now he's going to be coming out of the midfield for the Redwoods, and he's going to get a shorty, and he's going to just look and go, oh, I can go to the rack and score in the first 8 seconds of a possession. You can, ultimately, at the end of the day. So I don't know. I don't know how you change that. That's the thing that's hard too, right? Like, it's not like you're going to say, oh, we put more poles out there. You cannot take away the position of short stick defensive midfield. It is, to me, one of the most vital roles in a lacrosse team for more than just what they do on the field. Way more than what they do on the field. But it's definitely an interesting situation that you're going to run into. I think it'll be interesting to see how the first Outlaws game with Bernhardt goes, just in the sense of I'll be intrigued to see who their starting attack is, because I think it's Wisnauskas and Kavanaugh no matter what starting in that attack, and then it's a question of whether or not they put Bernhardt or O'Neill in the midfield. Then with the midfield lines for Denver, it'll also be interesting just to see how many lines they run, how much they actually change back and forth between a top line and a second line. Now, of course, anybody confused why we're talking about the Denver Outlaws, they were the Rochester Rattlers, then they became the Dallas Rattlers, then they became the PLL Chrome, now they are the Denver Outlaws. They are still coached by Tim Sudan, a gym coach at Fairport, an assistant lacrosse coach at Fairport. That whole upstate New York connection is very strong with that group. Of course, Mike Manley, the Penn Yan alum, former Rochester Rattler and Rochester Nighthawk, is one of their captains. Their goalie used to be John Galloway. Jordan McIntosh was their captain for a while. The list goes on and on with that group, really. Actually, Ryan Terefenko talked about it during training camp, talked about the fact that this team still talks about the Rattlers being a vital piece of their squad, which is, for me as a Rattlers fan growing up and having gone to a bunch of games when I was a kid playing lacrosse, that is all I want to hear from any of those guys on that team specifically, is that they still feel like they are the Rattlers. It's awesome. It also helps, again, for anyone that wants more connection to the upstate New York stuff. You've got guys that feel like they are devoting themselves to being upstate New Yorkers for the way they play. But then you also have other players on that squad that are seemingly talk about it like it's never been anything other than Denver. It's a really interesting thing that we get to deal with across the league. But the PLL will be in Charlotte this upcoming weekend. And as we look to some matchups, just quickly for where any players that we want to pay attention to are. There's a lot. I'm going to try to make sure that I remember all of the important ones right now off of the dome just while looking at a schedule. I do not have the list in front of me, so if I forget one, it's probably going to be a blatantly obvious one, honestly. So Outlaws versus the Chaos. Of course, Blaze Reardon in cage for the Carolina Chaos is a Fairport native. Chris Aslanian, the offensive midfielder, went down with an injury last weekend, the Hobart alum. We'll see what info we have on when he comes back, but he's really the only guy on that Chaos offense that we have any sort of connection to in the upstate New York area anymore. They will be playing the Denver Outlaws. Of course, Mike Manley on that squad is really the linchpin, I think, now for that upstate New York fandom. It's Manley, and it's also, of course, Tim Sudan and that coaching staff of that squad. Next game that day will be the Maryland Whipsnakes and the Philly Water Dogs. Rylan Reese and Thomas McConvey on the Water Dogs. Dylan Ward, the goalie for that squad. And then, meanwhile, on the Maryland Whipsnakes, it's Rob Pennell. Just traded or moved to the Whips in the offseason back in red, a little bit of a different red, kind of a weird red to see Rob Pennell in, if I'm being honest, but definitely keep an eye out for him in that matchup there on the Water Dogs' first game of the season at 8:30 on Friday. Utah versus Boston will be the battle of the Rochester Nighthawk lefties, as Connor Fields and Graydon Hogg match up in that one there. Also for the Archers, eventually possibly Cam Wires will be making his way back. He did get traded his rights to the Six Nations Chiefs, so there's a chance that he will not come down to the PLL, but we'll keep an eye on that, and if there's any word that kind of comes out, I will keep you posted in the next episode as that information rolls. And then, of course, with it being the Chaos home weekend, they have the Saturday night lacrosse matchup at 7 p.m. on Saturday. They're taking on the California Redwoods. Woods, actually, another team with a deep connection to upstate New York, unless you hate Victor, in which case, which I won't lie, it's a polarizing area for a lot of lacrosse fans around here, so I can't blame you if you do. But Chase and TD Erlin both getting the start as the specialists for the California Redwoods last week. TD at the faceoff dot, Chase in the cage. And right now, I mean, pulled out a win. Chase Erlin in his first ever PLL start gets that win. It'll be interesting to see if that's a plan for the full season to play Chase Erlin, or if there will be some sort of trade that possibly comes down the pipeline. Denver might have a couple of goalies now with McNaney coming in to change things up. It'll be interesting to see. But all in all, that will be how that weekend slates out. So really every single game, there is someone from upstate New York that is connected. So if you're looking for an excuse to watch the Premier Lacrosse League, don't worry about what league it is. Just worry about the players. Turn it on. Tune in. And yeah, that's going to do it for us this week on Against the Boards, a bizarre Tuesday episode. So not this Thursday, but next week on Thursday, we'll be back with our next episode. We'll preview the Philadelphia weekend for the PLL, and hopefully by then I'll have that interview with Ryan Smith completed, so we'll be able to give that to you next week. But for myself, Chamberlain Bauder, and my producer, Paul Russo, thanks for tuning in. This has been Against the Boards.